Hey, what's up, y'all? Have you ever asked yourself, why did I make that decision? Why did I make that choice? Why am I in this bad relationship? Or why was I in that bad relationship? Why I keep choosing the same people over and over and over again? I want you to take a look at my interview I did with licensed and relationship therapist Griselda Ramsey, where we talk about attachment styles, and it'll explain a lot as to why you made the choices and decisions that you made. All right, welcome everyone to another episode of Black Marriage Chronicles. We actually have a edition or a special edition of Black Marriage Chronicles today. So, we're going to talk about attachment styles and how they affect your relationships. And we're going to discuss that with none other than our own resident relationship therapist, Ms. Griselda. If you've seen previous episodes, you've seen her on there when we're talking to other couples, and she's not there in her official capacity to diagnose couples or anything like that, but just to provide some context and some of this information that they give us to help you and to help our wider audience. But today we're going to talk to her, and she's going to give us some information about attachment styles. I did do a little bit of homework. Okay. On the attachment styles. I know there are four. There are four, right? There are four main ones. Four main ones, but okay. They can be, some of them can be combined together. Yes. And so we're going to kind of get into that and how those attachment styles kind of affect your relationships. And if I'm not mistaken, I want to say they start in early childhood development, correct? They do. Okay. And then they kind of roll into your adulthood and they play a major part in who you are, the decisions you make in life, and how your relationships how those attachment styles affect your relationships moving forward. Is that correct? Absolutely. Okay. So like I said, I did do a little bit of homework. And I want to say the four main attachment styles are secure attachment. Yes. Insecure preoccupied. Yes. Insecure dismissive avoidance. Yes. And insecure fearful avoidance. Yes. Right? Okay. So what I want to know is like I said, I know I did a little bit of research, and they say the attachment styles start early in childhood. And if you would just kind of give us a little bit of how that works. So usually attachment is formed in those first formative years of life. So okay. When you're talking about ages birth to 5. Okay. So when a child is born, they have their in a healthy situation, they have their mom there as a primary caregiver, mm-hmm. feeding them the bottle or the breast. Mm-hmm. They all their needs are met. Mm-hmm. And so when you have situations where I want to ask you one thing, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. How does dad play a role in that? Because as we just said, mom, so dad doesn't play a role in that? He does. Okay, all right. So but more so your primary caregiver is going to spend more time with the child. Okay. So, but definitely if you have a household with a mom and a dad are in the household, you want each one to play their role in how to nurture that child. Okay. And how connection and how needs are met and love is given to that child. Okay. The father has his way and the mom has her way. Okay. And generally because of childbirth, the mom is the primary caregiver generally. Okay. Unless you have the child is of age a little bit older, you have a stay-at-home dad situation, okay. And they're the primary caregiver, but generally it is the mother. Okay. So if you wouldn't mind, kind of tell us a little bit about each attachment style that I just mentioned. So secure attachment means that generally all of your needs have been met. Mm-hmm. You were fed, you were loved, you were surrounded by family. Mm-hmm. Even the bad times, like you observe how to handle conflict and, mm-hmm. and tribulation and situations, it was handled in a healthy way. Okay. And so in those situations, the child has a secure attachment because their needs are being met. Okay. And then how does that roll over into adulthood and affect your relationships, your marriages, your relationships with just people, period? How does that work? So with a secure attachment, now don't get me wrong, it doesn't necessarily mean that you don't have to have therapy along the way, because mm-hmm. a lot of things happen between birth and adulthood, uh-huh. and into a relationship. Mm-hmm. So, but a secure person is also, when you look at an adult that has experienced trauma, maybe in adulthood, or experienced disappointment or letdown in adulthood, they're in therapy. They're really well rounded and aware of
their issues. They're not necessarily without issues, because none of us are without issues, but we're
all dysfunctional in some kind of way.
Exactly. So they're well aware of how to get those needs met in other ways, in healthy ways.
Okay.
They're not self-destructive or self-sabotaging, so to speak.
Okay.
And so that's what a secure attachment is. When you have an anxious attachment, you kind of like, you're in all three of those, this anxious, preoccupied, and
so you have insecure, preoccupied, and then insecure, dismissive, and then insecure, fearful.
So you didn't name the anxious attachment style. Okay.
I missed that one.
And some of them, sometimes I think one of those are, and it's now called something that like preoccupied, it could be anxious. So in those situations, like trust has been broken, you're very comfortable, you're not comfortable around people, and even in relationships you're very self-sabotaging, and because you don't have the level of trust there. So attachment was generally broken somewhere earlier in childhood with that person, or with the primary caregiver. Okay. So, or maybe mom was a good mom and dad was a good dad, but somewhere early they lost their parents. So attachment was broken that way.
Okay.
But of course you may have grandma or auntie or whoever that may have stepped in, but nobody gives you the same bond that your parents can give you. Right. They can give you love, they can give you everything you need, they can be there for you, but there's a different kind of bond, I think, with a child and its mother, and a child and its father.
Absolutely.
And so that person, there's so many levels of trauma that has happened for that person that they don't trust, or they seek out relationships, attention, or those things in the inappropriate way. And a lot of times in relationships, when you have those insecure attachments, they generally like run people away. Some extreme could be, they yell a lot, or they fight a lot, or they always cause chaos and conflict a lot, because they have not learned how to bond and gel with that person.
Coping mechanism.
And they don't trust that person is going to be there for them in some way. So let me hurt you and run you away before you get rid of me.
Oh, okay. So now what about insecure, dismissive, avoidance?
So when you avoid a person, or you dismiss a person, you're like, you're generally a type of person who is, you don't make connections very well, and you just avoid, when things get hard and when people get close, you tend to kind of find a way to bow out gracefully, or bow out even loudly. You just don't connect with them, because you don't, again, insecure attachments, you don't really have a lot of trust in those attachments. So they show up in different ways in insecure attachments. So when you're avoidant and dismissive, you can be a person who's like nonchalant. They're not moved by, they care, but they don't know how to show that they care. So they do the opposite. They're kind of self-destructive in that way, or they avoid you all along. So when you start to, like, say if we're dating and you start to like me a lot, now I'm kind of like, I don't trust that.
Is it with that particular attachment style, insecure, dismissive, avoidance? Is it that when I see you getting close, now I'm gonna fall back? Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, because I don't trust that. I don't trust that. What is it about me that makes you want to love me?
So how does that show up? What happened in early childhood development that rolls over and becomes that? I don't know what's the word. What's the clinical word for? What does that become when you're in this? So what are these called? I understand they're secure attachments, but what are these called clinically? What are these attachments?
Well, attachment theory is under the attachment theory. So, or they emotionally focused therapy is one of the ways to kind of address these issues. How to make connections in families and relationships is how to put the bond back together. And I think it's hard for some, because they've spent their entire life not being able to depend on people, not being able to trust people, not being able, or just having very conflictual and contentious relationships. And they usually seek out people that are going to be somehow emotionally unavailable to them. So they seek that out, not intentionally. Nobody wants to be with somebody like that, but this is who I'm drawn to and attracted to.
So in that scenario, these people, these insecure, dismissive, avoidance, they're drawn to those type of individual, and it feeds.
Well, in a dismissive and avoidance situation, it could be a person that wants to show you love, but because you don't trust it, you're going to stand back. Now, the good thing about that is when you recognize that, like I've had people come to therapy and to save the relationship because they know that this person is a good person. And they very well say my childhood trauma is interfering with my relationship, and I want to fix that. I want to address that so that I don't lose this relationship. And so instead of them, destroying what they have or self-sabotaging what they have, they recognize that they are avoidant and they are dismissive and they don't really trust being okay to be loved. When you have somebody who's anxious or not the dismiss, what is the other one?
So the other one is insecure, fearful, avoidant.
Okay. Oh, that one. Yeah, fearful, avoidant. The same thing with avoidant goes a long way, but the fearful, like you can have anxious, fearful, dismissive, avoidant. You can have these things can be combined together,
Yeah, I heard
and blended together. So when you have somebody who has a fearful attachment, they don't trust anything or anybody. People who was supposed.
How does that show? How does that in early childhood development? How do you get to this?
How does that show up?
Yeah.
So it could be like a person whose mom left them alone a lot, or their dad left them alone a lot, or their dad was never there, and they have not been able to depend on anything. Like nothing was stable for them. They were abused, and the people who were supposed to protect them did not.
Ooh, okay.
They didn't protect them.
And so who are those people drawn to?
Abusive people. They get in a lot of abusive relationships because that's what they're used to.
Oh.
And so they're drawn to people who again are not emotionally available, and they're abusive, and they've lived so long in that type of chaos that they create those scenarios where the chaos is still perpetuated, because in their mind and in their experience, yeah, mom, you weren't the best person. You were abusive, or you weren't there. Maybe the mother was on drugs and she hung out in the streets a lot. She had her young. But that's the chaos I'm used to. I'm used to people saying they love me, but they're not really there. They're not doing what a person who is loved, like in a secure attachment, would find as a person who's there, who's available emotionally as well as physical needs are met.
So when we, because we always say in the hood, you like drama. So who out of these attachment styles, out of those 5 attachment styles, who is that? Who is the person that like drama?
I think that for sure the person who's preoccupied and anxious, or
insecure, preoccupied.
Yes, yeah, okay. They create those scenarios, and they usually find themselves in relationships with people who are not available. Like someone, I received an email with someone, they're attached to someone who I haven't met them yet, but they're getting with someone who drinks a lot, and both of them have drama in their childhood, and one family is supportive and one family is not supportive, and the person's family they drink too, their parents drink too, so they have created this scenario, and in my mind I'm like, run. But I don't know the whole story because I have not talked to this person, but right off the bat when I'm looking at this and I'm like, what? What's going on here? Like, you can't, like, this is really black and white to me. But in that person's scenario, and again, I have not met this person, but in that scenario, this is I'm trying to rise above this and be what I'm supposed to be, but it's like smoke behind you, like Pigpen and Charlie Brown. Every time you saw Pigpen, you saw this cloud of smoke that came behind him. Yeah. So no matter where I go, this drama seems to follow me.
Wow. So with these attachments, so I think you said something earlier that these attachments, you can be either one of these at any given time.
Yes, depending on what has happened to you in your life, you could. Some of them are like a combined. They're combined. And what I like to do is when I have couples or when I have individuals who seem to have connection issues or they have trust issues, I give them this attachment quiz because I want to know what I'm dealing with in relation to how they connect and relate to other people.
So with that being said, can you this relationship quiz, this attachment quiz, can people find that online to kind of do their own test? Can you give the audience and let them know like
I have to pull up the website.
Yeah. Go ahead, take your time.
For sure.
I think people might want to know that just to kind of get an idea of who they are and why they act the way that they act. Because in my research, I heard that these attachment styles affect every part of your life, like why you make the decisions that you make, why you choose the people or the relationship that you get in.
Absolutely. Okay. So I use the attachmentproject.com. And there's a quiz, that's a very short quiz that's on that website, and it'll break it down to, and it usually measures like your relationship with your parent, your mother, your father, your partner, and in general. Okay. So it has the 4 levels of scoring. It gives you the avoidant and anxious score, or plotting those on a graph of how you score. The higher you score, the more you are in a deficit as far as how you relate to things. And once people start explaining things to me or their history to me, I'm able to see why they score in certain ways because of their trauma that they've experienced. Or the lack of connection with their parent or their provider. Like I've had people, I hear a lot of times, my dad was, he was there. He was a great provider, but he was very hands off. He was not emotionally available at all. But when we didn't have our lights cut off, we had clothes, we had food, but he was not available.
So what attachment style is that with people who have fathers like that? What does that normally?
Well, it can be any one of these.
Oh, okay.
So it could be avoidant, dismissive. It can be anxious, and it can be fearful. Their dad. Say if their dad was a great provider, but when he came home, all he did was drink. And so when he was kind of violent, angry or loud, and his belligerent in the way he drank, or he might have been a great provider, but he drank alcohol all the time, and then he was abusive to the mother, not necessarily the kids, but so it's a lot of scenarios that can make a person have those different insecure attachment styles. Okay. So it's in a anxious, preoccupied situation, it says that a person tends to have a negative self-view of themselves. So if I'm viewing myself negatively, I'm looking at what about me that makes you want to love me. I don't trust that. You might be a great person, but what is it about me that makes me worth you putting this effort in because no one else has?
Okay, since you're doing that, can you just go ahead and kind of give us a brief definition of all the attachment styles? Yeah, so we'll know, and just kind of give an example of how that shows up too.
So in adult, it says anxious, preoccupied adults with an anxious attachment style tend to have a negative self-view, but positive view of others, which is, I don't think highly of myself, but other people, what I see, I don't know their story necessarily, but they look like they have it all together to me.
Right.
This means that they may view their partner as a literal better half because someone with this attachment style deems themselves less worthy of love in comparison to other people. So, which is kind of what I mentioned. That person, what is it about me that makes you want to love me? And so what I tend to do is I run a lot. I self-sabotage. I run when things get hard. I leave the situation before you can leave me. And then you're looking at the avoidant dismissive, which we talked about. People with the avoidant dismissive attachment tend to have a positive self-view and a negative one of others. So, as I stated before, I may think that you're going to, because you're, who you are, you're going to leave me. So I'm going to push you away. I'm going to avoid you when you start getting close to me because you're not, you're not this person that I think you are anyway. This is not going to work. This relationship is not going to work. So it's almost
what they call it, a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Kind of, yes. Or self-sabotage. I sabotage this relationship. Consequently, they prefer to foster a high sense of independence and self-sufficiency on an emotional level. So you may find this person is a loner. Like they don't I may come to your event, but I don't, I'm just gonna dip in and dip out. I'm not gonna really make those kind of connections with people because I don't trust that you're gonna be there. You're not.
So I'm already anticipating that you're not going to be there. So I'm gonna make sure that I'm not putting myself in a position where you're gonna hurt me.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so, or this person may feel like I said, they're a loner,
Mm-hmm.
and they, I don't even want to be bothered. So I'm just going, I don't need no relationship to make me whole and make me complete. I'm good by myself.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not really good
Mm-hmm.
all the time.
Right.
And, we're created to be relational beings. So
And right, I
nobody
believe that
should
too.
be by themselves all the time.
Right.
You need time to yourself, but not be alone all the time.
Yeah, I maintain that I don't think we like you said, we are all relationship creatures. I think that we were not created to be by ourselves.
We were not.
We were not. I think we were created to cohabitate, communicate, relate to people, and be, not hermits. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, absolutely.
And
we're created to be in community with others.
Absolutely, I totally agree with that. I think it hurts us when we, and as individuals, when we seek to be hermits or be alone. You know what I'm saying? It just further feeds whatever
idea we may have or perceive. And so when we do that, it's like, I'm good. They think they're
good, right?
And they have convinced themselves that they are good. Like, you see older women sometimes, and you never ever see them with anyone, because after a while, and it could be a while of several bad relationships. Right. It could be a while of not being in a relationship, but after a while, they've convinced themselves that I'm good. I don't need to drama. I don't need to be with nobody. I don't need to share. I hear that a lot. Like women who say, I don't know if I want to be with somebody because, I gotta listen to what they say. I gotta share my stuff with them. I mean, I gotta, they don't want to be bothered. They think they don't.
And are these generally women who've been married before, or just maybe just in a relationship? They just like,
they may have been married before. Now I can understand if you've been married 35 years or 40 years or something like that, 60, your husband passed away. I can understand that. Like, a lot of times you don't see a lot of those women remarry.
Okay.
Where it's different with men, because they're used to someone taking care of them. So they may marry quickly. And people be like, he must have had that lady on the side. No, not necessarily. It's just that he's not used to being by himself. He used to somebody cooking for him. He used to somebody telling him what to do. He used to somebody washing his clothes. He used to somebody taking care of the house.
I don't know what to say to this.
That's what he just used to. So, they marry pretty quickly sometimes. And when I see older men or men, period, they tend to hook up pretty quickly because of that.
That made me think of, the other night on my show, Let's Argue, which I do every Thursday about 8:30. So if you guys want to get in on that, definitely tune in. It's called Let's Argue. And we premiere on Facebook and on this YouTube channel, Black Marriage Chronicles. But anyway, there was a card that I read from one of the games that we play, and it said, if your spouse how did it go? Do you give your spouse permission to marry your, like, say, your friend or somebody like that, in the event that, no, I'm sorry, I take that back. I was talking to one of my friends, and she was saying that she told her husband, in the event that she passed away before he did, she said it was okay that she wanted him to hook up with one of her friends. And I was like, she said, because when we talked about it, I was like, really? She said, but once she explained it, it made sense. She said, the reason I say that is because I know, one, that's my friend. We probably got a lot in common, and I know she's not gonna mistreat my kids.
Oh, absolutely.
She's like, I know she's not gonna mistreat my kids. She's gonna look out for them as if they were her own. And I was like,
I'm sure you got mixed views on that online.
Well, no. This was just me and her talking. I don't think we talked about that online. At least I don't recall. But she brought it back to my attention. She called me to let me know how excited she was for the show. She was like, your show was really, I'm really praying for you that it takes off. She really enjoyed it. It was a really nice show. And I thought I saw you. You must have liked it because you didn't come on. But
I think I tuned in quickly, but I had to get off because of something. Yeah, so I did tune in.
But she was just calling me personally to tell me how much she enjoyed the show and that the content was great and she enjoyed everybody on there. So just kind of give me some other ideas of what to do to kind of take the show to the next level. But we talked about because me and her did a one-on-one because she's a widow.
Okay.
And so we kind of talked about it, but she said, yeah, she told her husband in the event that she passed away before he did, she wanted him to marry one of her friends. And at first I'm like, what? But then the way she explained it, after I got her explanation, I was like, you know what, that makes sense.
It does make sense, but then there's girl code.
Yeah, it is. and I know it was one of them. You know what? More I'm thinking about it, it was a question in one of those games. And I think it was your significant other had an affair. You forgave him for cheating, but his mistress dies and he wants to go to the funeral. And it was, I guess, one of the four choices was A, who's wrong? The woman, the man for wanting to say his last goodbyes, or whatever. And so all the women was like, listen, if you didn't leave him for cheating, why are you gonna be mad because he want to go to the mistress' funeral and say goodbye? And then all of a sudden, so this was towards the end. A lot of women was like, no, you know what? I'm going with him just to make sure she did.
Oh my goodness, yeah. That's another one of those scenarios that's kind of mixed. But I agree with you. If you decided to stay with the man, just kind of like women all the time, their boyfriends cheat on them.
Mm-hmm.
They take the guy back, but they forever mad. They want to fight this girl. Like, why?
Yeah.
If you want to fight somebody, fight him.
Right.
You took him back though.
Yeah.
So if you want to get all, ghetto and fight somebody or whatever the case may be, fight him. He the one that violated the relationship.
Exactly. And that door swing well back. Like I said, why be mad at the person who cheated with your significant other? Because they the person you need to be mad at is the person that you're laying next to, not the other person.
But
unless
take them back.
Yeah, unless if it was somebody that knew y'all, you know what I'm saying? Like if you yeah, that's a different story. Like if it was one of my boys or somebody in my family, like really that's different. That's different. Like I could see a woman snapping if it was one of her girls, her sister, her cousin. Like really, you went across the line. But somebody who don't even know you, don't have no skin in the game,
and
with
he probably have told you that he was single.
Exactly. You don't know what lie he told or what lie she told,
or on a dating site.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. So you can't be mad at that person. But to get back to these attachment styles.
So the third one is disorganized, fearful, avoidant. And it's people with this disorganized attachment style tend to vacillate between the traits of both anxious and avoidant attachments, which we talked about earlier. But depending on their mood and circumstances, for this reason, someone with this attachment style tends to show up confusing and ambiguous behavior in social bonds. So they're like warm and cold, like depending on what's going on, you don't know how to read them. You don't know how to read them. Okay. They don't know how to read you. They don't know, you don't know what kind of person you're getting. When you walk in a room, you don't know if you're getting the nice them or they got an attitude today.
I ran into people like that.
So So I don't know how, it says they jump. I don't want to be bothered today.
Mm-hmm.
Tomorrow, I want to be bothered tomorrow, but you done already rubbed me the wrong way yesterday,
right?
And told me you ain't want to be bothered. Now you want me there, and you anxious about how you want me there, but I don't know that. Like I don't know how to navigate. And if you're in a relationship, your partner doesn't know how to navigate in that space.
Oh my God, I want to run away from that person ASAP.
Like, they just don't know. Like they don't know what the heck is going on because 1 minute we good and the next minute we're not.
Right. Oh yeah, that's gotta be hard. Okay. What's that?
And it says for adults with the disorganized attachment, the partner and the relationship themselves are often the source of both desire and fear. And that's like, I want you to be with me, but everything that I do screams, get away. And I'm fearful because I'm fearful. I don't trust that. So everything that I do, I'm again self-sabotaging this relationship, but I do want you to love me, but I don't know how to show you to love me. I don't know how to tell you that I want you and I desire you and I want you to love me and hold me, and I don't know how to do that. So I'm hollering at you all the time, whatever I need to do to get that negative attention instead of, relaxing a little bit.
And I wonder if that's the my cousin, I think I told you, I referred her to you. She was in a very abusive relationship, and she has a really good man now. She said it to me open. She was like, "Cuz he's a really good guy." She said, "But I know I'm running him away." She said, "I'm doing to him what was done to me."
Absolutely.
She said, "I'm doing." And then I had a friend that I grew up with. She said she was in a very abusive relationship, long term, and now she's with her current husband. And she said same thing. She said I started doing to him what was done to me, and luckily he stayed on, and they got through it. She said she was. I think she was doing some self medication, drinking and stuff like that. But once she got rid of, stopped that, their relationship improved. Um, I guess my question is, in those scenarios, like, how do you start the healing process?
Well, one, you need to recognize that you're doing it,
Mm-hmm.
and that's good that they recognize that. Like I said, I've had people come to therapy because they say that I have a good relationship, but I am tearing my relationship up because of my trauma that I've had, or my childhood stuff that I didn't realize was still there.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I'm reacting in a way that is going to destroy this relationship. And really, at the end of the day, I see people. The healing starts when people are in relationships that are consistent, they're loving, they're and that person needs to go to therapy and deal with their issues.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's about, am I strong enough to love you through your pain?
Mm-hmm.
And it takes patience to do that, because I may put up with you throwing a vase at me once or twice because you got so angry, and then you realize that that was inappropriate. I shouldn't have did that. But I'm not gonna put up with that, 7, 8, 9, 10 times.
Right.
You're at that point. It's like, I'm trying to love you. I'm trying to show you that I'm gonna be here, but you are really, really tearing this relationship down. And so it's a matter of, am I patient enough to love you through the pain that you feel? To show you consistency, to show you that I'm not that person that you were with before. And I remember, even for me, in my, I've always been a person that, if I was in a relationship and that person was did me wrong, the next person I'm with, I'm gonna give them 100% trust till they break the trust.
Mm-hmm.
And so some people are the opposite. I don't trust nobody till you build the trust. But I was the opposite of that. Like, you come in with the 100% relation with trust, but when you break it, you break it. But when I got married to my husband that I have now, I had to, like, it was a lot of relearning that I had to do, because my previous husband, he destroyed a lot. And so when things felt familiar or felt triggering, then I took it out on him.
Right.
But that's not who he is.
Yeah. Let me ask you something. Do you know what your attachment style is? And
it was secure.
It was secure.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And it was, it was a secure attachment, meaning that my mother and father divorced early, but my father has always been around, and my grandparents, and my, and my aunts. I wasn't one of those kids that, like, I spent the night everywhere, but I had a couple places that we went, that a couple cousins' houses that we spent the night at, that we were always, one of my cousins, we were always together. And so, for me, my mom was consistent and secure, and it really, like, she wasn't she loved us, but she wasn't an outwardly affectionate person. Till later, I realized, like, my mom don't really say I love you or give us hugs like that. And so I started doing it to her in adulthood, like about 10 years or so ago. I started doing it to her. So
start doing what you didn't get from your mother. You start doing it to your mother.
Her outwardly saying I love you, that kind of stuff. But I knew that it was always her and her girls, her and her, my sister and I. So I knew she loved us, and she didn't abuse us, and she took care of us, and gave us what we needed. So I knew she loved me, but she was not, like, my grandmother was not an outwardly affectionate person either. My grandmother did not say the words "I love you" when you leave, until I started having kids, a child rather, to the great grandkids. Then we started hearing her say "I love you" and give grandma a hug and all that kind of stuff. But she was not that person.
Okay.
And so my mom grew up with that not being her situation either. So,
do you, as now, because you recognize what the attachment styles are, do you know what you feel like maybe your mom or your grandmother had, what attachment styles they had?
Probably, if I had to guess, my grandmother, I would say the avoidant, dismissive.
Okay.
With my mom, I would say she bounces between anxious and avoidant.
Okay.
Um, so for her,
Mm-hmm.
but definitely avoidant because her mother's would fit that. I think would fit that criteria of being avoidant. So
Okay.
definitely that. But my mother, she was always like a fun loving person. She had friends. She had all these things around her. And then her and my dad, when they got together, they're friends now, but they were together so young, and it was not a good situation at all at the time.
It wasn't abusive, was it?
At the time, it was.
Oh wow.
It was. So my dad was my mother was more closed in and not, she was more naive than my dad. My dad was in the streets.
A little bit more worldly.
He was a little bit more worldly, as they say. Yes, than my mother was.
So okay, so I guess my question is, now you said you were secure, but seeing the physical trauma or the abusive relationship with your mom and your dad, you really feel like
so
you
because I was so young. Like I remember an incident.
Mm-hmm.
I remember an incident, and I remember two incidents. One when they were together, and one when they weren't together.
Mm-hmm.
But I was so young, like I was under 5.
Mm-hmm.
But I do remember that.
Okay.
And so for my parents, by the time I was of age, yeah, my mom, whatever, with all those needs that I needed, she met them for me.
Okay.
And even my father's mother, she was like Johnny on the spot. Like she, what he couldn't do, because it was a time when my dad went to prison, and he wasn't there, but he was always. I think he was like he loved us though. He was just in the streets.
Yeah.
So
I say the same thing. I felt like talking to a therapist that I felt like she that said that I was secure attached, but then there was something I guess I said, and she was like, it sounds, what did she call it? She called it insecure dismissive, because sometimes I can be like, well, whatever, you know what I'm saying? Like it don't matter. But she said you can bounce between,
you can.
Different attachment styles,
You
and
can.
I was like,
You
okay.
can.
Yeah, it was because with me, I felt like my mom, and it was just something she said during one of our sessions that I felt like with my mom, she was like, I don't know if I know she breastfed me. I don't think she did it with the other her other kids.
Okay.
With that, it was me and her for a short period of time until my brother came along. And I remember when I want to say I might have been in elementary school, middle school, my mom used to come in the room, get in the bed with me, and we'd just talk. Okay. And we would just talk. And she'll just, we'll just be in there talking, and she'll just be sharing stuff with me. And I vividly remember those times. Like
did she share, like overshare inappropriately, or
no. She just would talk to me. Nothing inappropriate.
Okay.
We would just be talking, and I'll be talking about what I wanted to do, and then and normally when she would do that, she'd be like, son, you got some money? Because she knew I would say money or whatever. And she was like, well, let me hold a couple of dollars, $40, $50, and I'll give it back to you. Well, she always would. She would always give it back to me. But I vividly remember that, her getting in bed with me, and we would just be talking and just sharing stuff. You know what I'm saying? And as I got older, I believe that kind of lesson, because what I realized is that, and I took responsibility for that. My mom, I looked at her, I held her on such high esteem, for one. And then when I seen her get involved with drugs and alcohol, it just did. It destroyed you. Oh yeah, it took a toll on me. It really did. And I didn't know how to bounce back from that. And I used to see my brothers and sisters, them having a relationship with my mother. But when I came around, it was instant tension. And I have to imagine, because I was the oldest and we did have that bond, she was resentful as well. Like, how dare you? You're judging me. But it took me a long time to get over it. I had to accept my mother for who she was, and she was human just like I am. She was, you know what I'm saying? And I held her on such high esteem. But once I came to the acceptance, she's a woman. She's human just like I am, and she's going to make mistakes. And this is one of her. This is her trauma. This is her journey. And I have to take a step back and be like, and love her in spite of it. Once I came to that acceptance, we start having fun. I was able to enjoy her the way my other brothers and sisters was, and I missed a lot. I feel like to some degree or another, I kind of missed out on a lot
Okay.
because I was so angry about her, the choices that she made.
Now, how long were you with your mom before she had the second child?
So I want to say I am two. Let's see, 2 or 3 years older than my brother.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Before he came along, and then so it was just me and her for maybe the first 2-3 years.
Okay. Okay. And that's just kind of the same scenario with my dad. I remember my dad, because my dad did drugs. He was he was worldly. He was he was for real in the street.
Oh, so was my father. I
And
ain't even talked about him yet. But
and my dad, he was one of those guys. Like I was telling somebody, like my dad had a best friend that was a Native American guy. I remember him when I was little. But when my dad and this guy would come around, they would be like, people be scared because they were like, like gangster type guys.
Yeah.
So, but my dad was always cool and laid back. And so, but I remember like when I got older and I was probably in my early 20s, my dad did something to me, like it would not to me directly, but indirectly, where he just violated my space. And so I remember saying to myself then, I have to just love my dad where he's at right now. Because if I try to expect more from him, he's going to continue to disappoint me because he still was, in his journey of trying not to be on drugs. And finally, when he had a couple close friends who OD'd, he finally like, I can't do it.
Yeah.
So, but he's always been a cool, laid back guy. He's always been, he's always been around somewhere. And so, so I guess this for me, that's why I came up with the secure attachment. And also I think that when attachment is broken, as long as there's some intervention, and for me, me being a therapist, me going to school, me being around other people, other situations, other scenarios and experiences. And I used to work with like sexually abused children or emotionally abused children. And so I got to see another side of the fence. Now, did that kind of make me gun shy to an extent? Absolutely. Because I saw a lot and I heard a lot.
Right.
But it made me aware of a lot of different things where people don't have that experience. They're not really aware. So I was able to, I would say in that regard, it taught me a lot of lessons. So, it wasn't just my experience with my parents. It was my experience along the way.
Yeah. It's funny because I say that you have to, because I just want to go back to something you mentioned earlier. You do have to. You don't have to, but when you get with somebody, you got to be. Everybody come with luggage. Everybody come with baggage. 100%. You just got to be willing to help them unpack it. And absolutely, the biggest part, you need to unpack your shit.
Yeah, and really, a lot of people, how we drag raggedy full luggage everywhere we go. And never unpack
In the words of Erykah Badu, bag lady. You gonna miss your bus.
Amen. So sometimes we do that.
Yeah.
And we take that little old raggedy suitcase from this house to that, and we never start to just pull out that stuff that we not. Now we're not wearing none of that stuff. We just got it packed, taking that baggage or that luggage everywhere we go.
And those old traumas from other relationships, and you carrying them over. Yeah. And now you just expecting this person to be this and expecting this person to do that. Yeah.
Like with women, for instance, we tend to jump into relationships right behind each other. We don't. The worst thing I think for women to do a lot of times is to be alone with their thoughts. They want to be
caught up. It's the worst thing to do?
Yeah. No, it's a good thing, but it's bad for women. Okay. So how do you get over one man? By getting under another man. So we just jump from relationship to relationship to relationship. We never, even men, men have a different connection. Like once you hurt most men, it takes them a long time to trust somebody else. A long, long time. And especially if they had a scenario where their mother violated their trust, whether not sexual abuse per se, but like in any, like a scenario with you, when you found out she was on drug, your mom was on drug, she violated a trust in you where you thought you could depend on her, you held her at this esteem. So if it starts there, it's like, I don't trust no woman. The woman who was supposed to be there for me was not there for me. No woman can measure. I just don't trust no woman.
Yeah.
And so for women, we just we don't give ourselves time to heal and time to understand And a lot of times we want to blame the guy, but it takes two people to make a relationship work.
True.
You have some fault in that. Is if your fault was only that I allowed him to do what he did.
Oh, wow.
You have a fault in that.
Yeah.
And so I tell people a lot of times that have this similar outcome in relationships. Well, the common denominator is you. And you need to figure your stuff out.
Wow. Now, because y'all always think y'all right, how do women react in therapy to that? Do they be looking at you like you crazy? I ain't coming back to her.
They come back to me. They caught off guard because I'm the first person that told them that.
Okay.
You know, and I had to do that with myself. Like I had the same scenario before Nick and I got married. I was alone for 4.5 years, just figuring some stuff out. Me, my baby, and God. You know, I had to figure it out because I had similar outcomes with men in relationships. So I figured that I was the problem. I was part of the problem.
How long between your first marriage and your second marriage?
About 4.5. So I got divorced in 2002. Well, we were separated before we divorced, so we officially were divorced in 2002. And I married again in the middle of 2006. So about 4.5 years.
During that time, did you date anybody?
I tried to date a couple times, but at that point, my thing was I really need to understand what I needed, and once I understood that, I was able to recognize if you show up and you're not what I need, I was able to recognize that I didn't justify it, I didn't go along to get along. I'm like, right up front, because I spent the time doing the work.
Now, is this time where you in school, finished with your degree, so you had a little bit of...
I've always been in school. So
okay. Forever student.
Forever student. So I probably was between my first husband, and I was finishing I was in school for my bachelor's degree, and I was in school with starting my master's program because I bought a house and everything for me and my son. So I was between those two degrees when I divorced him. So matter of fact, I was in my master's program because I graduated in 2003 with my first master's.
Okay.
So I've always been in school.
You always been in school.
But the thing is, when it comes to stuff like that, I'm gonna take care of business.
Right.
Like I can depend on me, regardless of what you do. I can depend on me, and so I'm gonna do what I got to do to get done what I need to get done.
Exactly.
So. Yeah, so that was a scenario. But I did the work and figured out, what I needed. And then I wrote it down. Like, hey, I need this, And I remember I had a guy that I met. I met this guy at the gas station, and I remember, number one, my ex-husband lived with his mom. And I said I would never date a man that lived with his mother. Okay. Never, ever, ever. I don't care if she living with you or you living with, or you tell me she living with you. I'm not about to do it. Okay. I ain't been ready to do it. So after him, no, sir. Okay. So this guy lived with his mother. Number one, he said he had a job. He was a truck driver for one of the plants, the big 3 plants. But he had one child that he didn't really have a relationship with. She was away at college, but they didn't have a close relationship. And I had my son, and I'm like, me and my baby are a package deal. Right. So you get him, you get me, you get him. And he was making all these plans. He had us dating, married, like in a matter of months. And everything he was planning for me and him had nothing to do with me, him, and my son. Oh. He was like, well, somebody can watch your son, and we're going to go out. I'm like, flag on the field, sir. No, I don't even put my child off on other people like that. I don't do anything at this age that my child can't do with me. So, no, he didn't last long at all. Okay. So, So, but I did the work to realize that. Other than that, I would have just been like, well, it's okay. And he, he loves me so much. He want to spend all his time with me and blah, blah, blah. No, no, you got to stop collecting the flags and listen to the flags.
Right. How important is it, for our audience who's listening to this, if you feel like any one of these attachment styles apply to you, that you go get help?
It's very important because the health of your relationship or your marriage or whatever, even your relationship with your children.
That's what I was going to ask too.
Your relationship with your relatives, it depends on that. Your relationship and how you interact with your coworkers, like you have.
It goes that deep.
Yeah, because you might have a person who, you go to work like, dang, why are they so angry? Like, why are they so mean and so angry?
Oh my God, I know a couple people like that. My God.
Early in the morning, like, you just woke up. Why are you mad?
Oh, listen, And see, and I'm the kind of person like I'm pretty. If you whatever energy you put out to me, that's pretty much what you're gonna get back. Like I ain't gonna even lie to you. And Lord knows I might need to work on that. But I'm Lord Jesus. I like if you that's the energy you put out, or I'm what they call dismissive avoidance. I'm staying away from you. I'm not about to be dealing with that. I'm not. So you don't speak. I don't speak. Keep it moving. You know what I'm saying?
And I realized that, like, as I got older, like, I don't want to be around negativity. I just
miss me with that.
Absolutely, like you just don't want to be around negative people, negative energy, negative. And it's not like, I can say hi to you, but I'm like you, kind of like, if I got to do all this extra effort to speak to you, I'm not gonna. If what I have learned, because I had a best friend, and we had been best friends since elementary school, but we're not friends anymore. And I realized that she had placed me at a boundary, and I'm like, that's the boundary you put me at? I'm gonna respect that. So I learned as I got older in the last few years, probably the last 6 or 7 years, hey, I gotta, I talk a lot about getting people to respect boundaries. If that's the boundary you're gonna put me in, then I'm gonna, guess what, I respect that. I'm not gonna bulldoze my way past your boundary that you have placed on me.
Absolutely.
Because if I'm putting more energy in this than you are, then I can't want it more than you. I can't want it more than us. Exactly. So I'm gonna respect the boundary that you have placed on me, and I can navigate around that or without that.
Absolutely. So already know on the show we play games, yes. And this is like no other. So we're gonna play some games, and because you are in a ministry, we're gonna move slightly towards. I feel like your expertise, your wheelhouse.
Okay.
So this is culture tags, everyone, and then we're gonna place a couple of cards from here. So there's a couple different categories, and I'll see if I can have them all and I can read them off. We're gonna pretty much go to church. So you have songs and lyrics, church, Black Twitter, TV and film, words to live by, family and friends. But because we have now, you are what in the church? Ordained evangelist. Okay, and your husband is
a pastor.
A pastor. Okay, so she should have this church thing down on lock, y'all. Right?
I should.
She should have this church thing on lock, y'all. So let's
you might be safer with me with TV and film.
Okay.
So I'm just kidding.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So let me see. Let's get some church stuff here. So let's talk a little bit more about these attachment styles. What, in your professional opinion, out of those attachment styles, is the worst? Like, okay, this one needs more attention than maybe the others.
I think when you talk to someone who has a fearful, anxious, avoidant type of path, I think that's like all those are just meshed together. Yeah. So I think that person is going to be more sabotaging, dramatic, erratic. They're gonna really I want to be with you, but I don't want to you. That's the person you don't know what you're getting from day to day.
Okay.
And so you don't know how they're gonna show up. Okay. And so they have really have strong trust issues. They have they're the person who they fly off the handle, and then you don't hear from them for a minute.
So they get mad about every little thing.
They can. Okay. Yeah. So it's like. And I guess that depends on age too. Seem to be people that's in the zillennial and especially the zillennial, everything irritates them.
What's the zillennials?
The people that's born in 1999 to 1998 to
Okay.
They're the people that's in their teens and 20s right now, or early 30s, or pushing close to 30.
Gotcha.
Those
new age kids.
Everything seems that I'm irritated.
Babies.
Yes. They have no idea about how life existed before the internet.
Oh my God.
So, and they irritated about everything. Everything annoys them.
Yeah, my wife said they what she call them, instant micro. What does she call them? Instant, they want everything now. Or they are very, what does she call them? They're very they think privileged. They think everything entitled. That's what it is. Yeah, she called them very entitled.
Yeah. Now
they don't want to. They feel like they need to work from home.
and they want to take. Yeah, but I have said that if a lot of corporations don't change the way that they operate, they're not going to have a workforce because the millennial and the zillennial generation, they don't want to spend 40 hours at work. They want to be able to travel. They want to be able to work from home. They don't want to sit in your office all day and be in meetings. They're not going to do that if they can help it. So if these big companies don't start to change the way they do business, they're not going to have a workforce.
I want to say, is it Sweden or is it Mexico? Where they actually have a day where you get one day. No, they're trying to make instead of a 5-day work week, they want to make a 4-day work week, which I'm on right now. I love it.
Yeah, and I
4
think,
days on, 3 days off. I love it.
China, was it China? One of the, so a lot of countries are shopping around scenarios like that because they are more in tune to mental health and self care. You know, even a lot of people are, you know, young African American people, because a lot of them have mobile or remote businesses. A lot of them are moving to like the Caribbean islands. They're being expats in those countries because they have remote business anyway, and they just don't want to be tied down to anything. So, you know, yeah. My friend, she called them millennials. You know, she used to say when she was young, she's 71 now, but she used to call them potato chip babies. Not the zillennials, the millennials. Yeah, potato chip. And that's pretty much, you know, they want everything quick. They potato chip babies.
Wow.
They're very fragile. You know, chips break in a heartbeat.
Oh my God. And you know what? But that's another conversation, because I was going to say we can get into this DI, because I just feel like everybody is so freaking sensitive. You can't say anything now. Like, but that's another conversation for another day. All right, so we're going to play from this game. Hopefully I give you some good clues.
Okay.
All right. Okay. All right, so here's hopefully you guys at home can see it. Yep. Okay, that's it. Yep. And then I'm going to show it to you. These are the letters.
LTCSA.
Yes. Okay. So let me see. This is something the pastor may say in the temple to the congregation. Like, let's say if the pastor makes a good point, and then he may say,
"Amen."
That is the last word.
Come on, somebody. No.
So the letters are LTCSA. The last word is what you said, amen. So what are the other 4 letters?
If he makes a good point,
yeah, he makes a good point in the church, and then he may say to the congregation, he may say, amen. What does he say before that? What are the words preceding that?
Oh, Lord Jesus Christ. Can I get, no, that's not the same thing.
The letters LTC.
So they're scrambled.
No, they're not scrambled. They're in order. You said the last word. The last word is amen.
Oh, amen is the last letter.
Yes.
Okay. Look at your neighbor.
It's something that the pastor would say to the congregation if he makes a good point in service, or he reads a certain passage and he wants you to confirm that. It's a way.
I don't know.
Let the church say amen.
Oh, let the church say amen. Okay.
All right.
Oh, my goodness.
I know. You're going to be mad at yourself about that one. Okay, here's the next one. See if everybody at home can see this. All right.
LTLUY. Okay.
All right. So this is something that the pastor may say to the congregation when he wants you to be of service to Christ.
Can you give me another clue? That's very broad.
Okay, so something that the pastor may say to you, maybe in a private session with the pastor, if he's counseling you on something, and he may say, "Let Christ." Oh, I said the first word already.
Let.
Yep. So they already gave you a clue. I wasn't supposed to say that. So the first word is let. And then what did you think the other letters are? What do they stand for? What's another name for Christ?
Lord.
Yep.
Use you.
There you go.
Okay.
All right. All right, so here's another one. All right, so this one should be pretty easy. This is something we might say,
TS.
like another word. What is the morning star? He's the opposite of God.
Satan.
Yep. So
That's what the last word is.
yes.
Not today, Satan.
There you go. All right. Not today, Satan.
That's because I say that one.
You say that one? All right. So here's another one. Another 3-letter word. All right. Okay. So ISTO. This is something when at the end of service, the pastor may say, hey, I want to bring somebody up to the altar, like an altar call. And this is something they may say. And I hear this a lot at funerals when you want people to convert their life over to Christ.
Is there?
It's not many, but there's not many, but
few.
Okay, less than that. Not
less
two,
than few.
Not two, but
one.
There you go. That's the last word.
One. Is there one?
There you go.
Is there one? Okay. Is there one?
Is there one? But yeah, so this been a,
so I got two. Then I got two wrong and two right.
You got two wrong and two right. Yeah, there you go. But I definitely, I think this was very informative, and I definitely hope everybody got something out of this. So, what would be your advice to our audience? I mean, what would you tell them as far as these attachment styles? Like, what would be a bit of advice you would give to individuals who may feel like some of these things they identify with?
My advice would be one, recognizing that, you are in a place where you have had this trauma, you have had these scenarios happen to you in your life, and seek help. Mm-hmm. I tell people, just like we have a good doctor, a good barber, a hairstylist, you don't want to get rid of those. Mm-hmm. Same thing with the therapist. Okay. But you need to have a good therapist in your contact list. So right. In your roster. Absolutely. So it's very important to recognize that if you want happiness, number one, happiness is solely up to you to make yourself happy first, because a person can't make you happy. Okay. Because if they leave your life, then they took that happiness with them. Right. But if you're happy and fulfilled in you on your own, then you're always complete. I don't care who I'm with. I'm able to show up as myself, authentically me, regardless of the relationships that I'm in or around. And then, like I said, it doesn't have to be a romantic relationship, but even at work, at church, in my family, I don't want to be the person that people hate to see coming. Mm-hmm. So my thing is to recognize that and get help. Let somebody help you and walk you through that and navigate through that.
Yeah. I think it's so important, especially in this day and time. Everybody's talking about mental health and self-care, and and I know I done referred a lot of people your way and gave names. And if you're watching this, the lady's good. Reach out to her. She accepts insurance, medical insurance.
Absolutely.
So yeah, tell the people how to find you.
So people can find me on Facebook under Life Changing Therapeutic Services or Griselda Ramsey. Mm-hmm. They can find me on Instagram under Life Changing Therapeutic Services GR. Mm-hmm. .gr or Griselda Ramsey, because I have 2 Instagram pages and 2 Facebook pages, or on TikTok even.
On the TikTok?
The solutions therapist.
Okay.
I'm listed as a solutions therapist on TikTok. So, my email is lifechangingtherapeutic@gmail.com. So you can email me or reach out to me on any of those social media pages, and I will be more than happy to talk with you. And I give people a 15-minute consultation for free.
Okay.
So if you just want to know, like, should I seek therapy, or should I, is it time for me to seek therapy, or should I take this next step? Feel free to call me or email me, and I can get back with you.
Yeah. Can you also give the information for the attachment test where you can go online and take and get the information?
Yes, it's called theattachmentproject.com.
Theattachmentproject.com.
Now, keep in mind, before we go with attachment style, these tests can be more subjective. So, like, I've had people who they said their attachment style was secure, and I'm like, out of everything you just shared with me, you came up secure. And so, every now and then, because people either don't answer questions right, or they
pencil whipping the test.
They wanna come across as good, So just really be honest with yourself in that point about what's been going on in your life when you take the quiz. And it's just for your own
self-benefit,
recollection and self-benefit. And I want to say this one thing. Another thing with attachment style, and even I remember our bishop talking to us about birth order. That can also play a role, like the oldest child, the middle child, the youngest child. If there are 5 children and you in the middle, the birth order can play a role in attachment also. Like the mother may not have been as loving to the oldest child because they depended on them a lot to help with the kids, and they may be, the baby get away with everything, which is not always good because sometimes they are entitled or they take liberties that they shouldn't take. But by that time, the mom is like, mothers know their kids. They know which kid they need to coddle. They know which kid is independent. They know what, so sometimes that can play a role in our attachment style too. They may have been a parent who was there, but because they had multiple children, they show up with those kids differently.
Yeah.
And that can also affect you in relationships.
I would have to say, I definitely agree with that, because even looking at my siblings, without kind of going into detail and telling everybody business, I know for sure my mom, like my youngest, because my brother is the youngest, like she really, like it was just like I'm like, he's a grown ass man with kids and a wife. What are you talking about? You know what I'm saying? And then my sister, who was over him, she felt at times that she didn't feel like my mother loved her. You know what I'm saying? Right. And then come to find out from my brother, who's under me, he was saying that mama was, I think, going through what is it called, PSD or
PTSD. She was PTSD.
Postpartum.
She's postpartum.
Okay. Yeah. So she was. I didn't know that. Like my mother didn't really bond with her, but I didn't know that. Okay. You know what I'm saying? Okay. And now I see why she felt the way she felt. Because my sister, for always claiming she's the black sheep of the family and on that, like, girl, stop. You always want to be the. You know what I'm saying? Like, if that's what you want to label yourself, all right, go ahead. You claim you want to stay in that space, right, and you stay in that space. You do what you exactly. But I get. Part of that, some of that is legitimate. Some of that I think is just you just want to be the victim. But some of that is legitimate but I didn't know my mother was going through that when she had my sister. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So there was a lot of trauma that was going on between them. And now it can make sense why they used to bump heads a lot too.
Now, are your siblings 2 years apart or 1 year apart or 9 months apart?
So really, we're pretty much... me and my brother like 2-3 years apart, and then my other sister that's under him, they're about 3 years. They're about 3 years apart, and then my other sister, that's underneath, because that's me, my brother. Then I got 2 sisters, and the 2 sisters I think want to say maybe 3 or 4 years apart, and then my brother and my youngest sister and my younger brother, they might be a few years apart.
Okay.
Yeah.
So could you talk about a lady who's had, like, she's had multiple children that are young together? Like, you try your best, but it's like,
and in that Griselda, I'll be honest with you. I it came to, and I want to just thank God for that I am. I feel like I'm a lot more self-aware than most of my brothers and sisters. And that's no disrespect to any of them. You know what I'm saying? But something came to me in a revelation, and I was like, my mom, and I think I kind of mentioned this earlier. I'm hoping that my sister can, because I told her when my mom passed away, you got to find a way to make peace with what mama didn't give you. Yeah. I don't know how you gonna do it, but you got to find a way to make peace with that. And I'm saying all that to say, my mother, and even with my sister, and I hope she even sees this, your relationship with your daughter. You got to understand that she having a little difficulty with her daughter, and her daughter got a mouth or whatever. But mama was a woman too. She was a woman
I was
just
first. Getting ready to say that. At the end of the day, and that's one thing when I hear women talk about their relationship with their mother, I try to get them to understand that, hey, your mother was a woman at one time. and she may have
She
had
was
her
a woman
own. She
first.
may have had her own trauma,
Yeah.
and she did the best she could. Some women, they were just totally out of whack. I understand that, but your mom did the best that she could and the best that she knew how. So you need to. Yeah, she's your mother, but you need to recognize her as a woman.
Grace. You
gotta give her grace.
Absolutely. And I sincerely hope that maybe my sister sees this and understands that, because mama didn't love me. I just think she did the best she could with what she had.
Yeah. What did your mom have all her kids in her 20s, or was she earlier, later than like in her 30s? Because you think about if you had a child at 17, 18, 19,
she had
20,
me young.
21, you don't really know who you are as a woman or a man. You don't know that.
And I want to say that me and my mama were, like I said, we were close for such a long time. And I know a lot of that has to do with the fact that my dad, he was physically abusive to her at some point in the relationship. So with me being the only person there, and my dad never like came at us like she had to protect us from him. But there might have been times she even grabbed me to keep him from doing something to her, because he probably wasn't going to hit me. But you know what I'm saying?
Right,
just
exactly. Out of a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, a lot of stuff going on. But I sincerely, it is part of my prayer that I really hope that my sister, like she has to, and I told her this, like you got to find a way to make peace with what you feel like mama didn't do for you. You got to make peace with that, because that's showing up in your relationship with your daughter.
Absolutely. And as an adult, we definitely carry that baggage with us. We can blame, but at some point you got to make a decision to be different. Like when I talked about my mom not being an affectionate person, but it because of where I worked and the environment I worked in, I made sure that I was very loving and had an open relationship with my son because of where I worked, because I understood. Yeah, she did what she knew how to do, but I learned differently, so I need to do what I know how to do.
Exactly.
So that's the same thing with your sister.
Absolutely. And I say that my mother, she, like you said, she did the best she could with what she had, and I just sincerely hope that somehow my sister finds a way to make peace with what she feels like she didn't get from my mother.
Absolutely, I hope so too.
Yeah. But with that, we have definitely come to the end. I definitely appreciate you coming in here and having this conversation with me, and I definitely hope our audience gets some value out of this. I know I did. It was an interesting conversation. I know it was a kind of different take on Black Marriage Chronicles, but I think it still fits into that narrative because it shows up in your marriage. Absolutely. It shows up in your relationships. Absolutely. And you got to figure out a way to, if you feel like you have any one of these attachment styles, like you said, get some help, seek it out, because it's not always the other person. Sometimes it's you.
Absolutely. Sometimes a lot of times we think it's the other person, but it's you.
It's you. What you say, you the common denominator. Every time this happens, this is you.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
So people, we talk about mental health and how important it is and self-care. You got people like Griselda who's willing to help. Now the thing is, what I want people to know is that really, and I heard this someplace, that therapy used to be for the rich, but it's not anymore.
It never was. It's just that at one point only the rich could afford it. Number one.
There you go.
And number two, we always went to the church. Let's go to the church and pray about it. But that's you can love God and you can be in therapy.
Exactly. Yeah. So. And some of this stuff just comes from from our culture of being Black people. We pass certain negative things down, like Absolutely. You don't go talk to nobody, you deal with it, and no, we now that this mental health stuff is available to everybody and it's being encouraged, we got to take advantage of it. Folks.
Absolutely,
we got to take advantage.
Absolutely. I'm reading a book on Audible with the actor Courtney Vance, and it's called The Invisible Ache, but he talked about the actor that's married to Angela Bassett. Ooh. So he talked about his father committed suicide, and I didn't realize that he lived in Detroit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's from the D.
Yeah, his father committed suicide, and how it affected him, growing up, and so he was referred to his therapist, and his mother. Matter of fact, his mother told him and his sister after his father died, get into therapy.
Wow.
And he was just so thrown back, and out of the blue, she was like, I just want you guys to do one thing for me, get into therapy.
Wow.
And
Did he ever
so
go?
eventually he found somebody, because at first he didn't, it was like really weird for him, but his doctor, I think he said in the book, referred him to a lady after he started talking to her, and that person was the fit for him.
Okay.
So his book is very interesting. He does it with Dr. Robin L. Smith.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's her name, Smith. And she they're co-talking about different aspects of the book, but it's called The Invisible Ache.
The Invisible
Yes.
Ache.
So it's I think men should definitely read that book.
Before we go, women are more? Who seeks out therapy more? Women, men, or women?
Historically, I think it's been women, but more men are recognizing that they need to go to therapy, and I really like that. Yeah, I've in the last 2 years, I have gotten so many, especially young people. Now, I can't say now the millennials, they may act a certain way, and the millennials may act a certain way, but they know they need to be in therapy. For sure, they don't have no hangups about therapy at all.
Okay.
So, but even older men, like in my generation and your generation, we're in the same generation, but even men a little bit older than us, but definitely in our generation, a lot of men are coming to therapy now, and that makes me happy to hear that.
A lot of black men,
and other men, because black people are not the only culture outside of white people. When you think about Indians, or I've had Arabic people, men. I've had Indian, and I've had Asian, and I have had Nigerian men.
Okay.
So I've had different people who have come to therapy, and I remember having a young Asian person, and he had to he couldn't even talk about the fact that he was in therapy because his father didn't really agree with it.
Wow.
An old traditional Asian person, Asian father, but
So, but you have to approach those a little bit differently, especially from a cultural aspect.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's what I was going to say.
We have to be culturally competent and culturally efficient to deal with, and it doesn't hurt to ask questions. So even with black and white, we don't have the same experiences necessarily. Just because we grew up in this country together doesn't mean we have had the same experience.
We know we don't have the same experiences.
Exactly. So you have to ask questions.
Absolutely. Yeah. Man, well, listen, we can go on forever. We'll be here all day. We'll be here all day.
Absolutely.
But I am going to let you go again. But I thank you so very much for coming in and sitting down and talking to us and sharing your information with people about the attachment. There's she mentioned there's 5, but hopefully looking at this, you will be able to identify what yours is, and then go to that website and take the test. Be honest with yourself about where you are, and then, like she said, seek the help out. It's out there for us all. Take it, but I want to just, with that, I'm going to end it here. Be well. I'm wishing you all the best, and may God bless you all.
Amen.
All right. I'll see y'all. Thank you.